again, everyone. Again, my name is Tia Lendo from the Google for Education team, and I am really excited to be hosting you for this live Q&A session with two of the fantastic speakers that you just saw. Firstly, we have Jennie Magiera, who is a digital learning coordinator for a network of schools in Chicago Public Schools. Hi, Jennie, how are you?
Hey, Tia.
That's great to see you. Thanks for joining us, particularly when I know that you are in school today working. So also thanks to your manager for letting you join us. Great. And then we also have Brittany Wenger. I had the pleasure to meet Brittany 3 years ago when she won the Google Science Fair for her outstanding work, which most of you just heard about. She's a student at Duke University, and she's joining us today. Hi, Brittany. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing everything. And, let's start with a question for Jennie. And Jennie, thank you particularly for sharing your students with us. The coding video still has me laughing. It's great to see. Your talk was about giving power to the pupil. I wanted to ask you, what is it that you think gets in the way for many teachers of turning over more power to their students?
So I think there's a lot of reasons, but I think the biggest are probably three things. The first is that it's the fear. And it's not the fear of our kids and the fear of what they might do. Deep down, if you want to get to the basics and the foundation of it, it's the fear that we're going to fail them. If we're not in charge and we're not steering the ship, we don't know where we're going to be tomorrow, and we don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. So if we give power over to our kids, we aren't ensured that they're going to make it to where we're trying to get them. But like I said in that talk, it's about trust, and we have to trust that together with the kids we could get to a better place than even we can plan and envision. I think that the other thing is a lack of knowing that that's an option. I remember one of my colleagues came and watched me teach, and she said, "Oh my God, Magiera, it looks like you're working so hard. Why don't you slow your roll and let your kids take on more autonomy and agency in your classroom?" And to be honest, I really hadn't thought of that before, because I was trying to make my classroom look like the classroom that I grew up in and that I had learned in. And because we weren't students in a classroom that was so free and allowed for such agency and power, that's not something that we default to. So we need more teachers to be aware of that. And hopefully after these amazing 3 days, teachers are going to go back to their rooms on Monday and know to do that. And the final thing is, again, what I said in that talk, which is not knowing the first step. So after you decide that you're going to trust yourself, take the risk and say, hey, this is a model that I both believe in and can see, it's knowing what's the first step to get there. And the first step is different for everyone, but the important thing is that you try something.
Thank you. That's really great. And, Brittany, we heard in your talk the power that comes when a student is really allowed to pursue their passions and is enabled. You mentioned a lot of mentors and your family who really nurtured the curiosity you had and the passion you had to want to do something about breast cancer. So I guess my question to you is, are there things that would have made it even easier? What are the things that adults out there can do to help students who have that curiosity?
Yeah, so I was really lucky to have a lot of support, and a number of my teachers, especially Mr. Newhams and Mrs. Barrett, would come in after school or before school, or even give up their lunch breaks sometimes to work with me. But I think one of the biggest obstacles is time. As high school students, we're expected to do a lot, from extracurriculars to our normal schoolwork. There's a lot to be done. And I think it would be really useful if we could offer something like an independent study period to students, so that they would have more time allotted to focus on their passions. Because I have an independent study now in university, and it's just been amazing to have some time allotted to me to just explore my own curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you mentioned the independent study period. There's a number of sessions happening in the conference tomorrow, including by an educator named Kevin Brookhauser, who are going to be talking about just that and how you can build more of that time and flexibility into education. My next question.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it should be really good. And the sessions are throughout the day and will also be recorded. So if you miss it, you can check back afterward. I want to go over to Jennie now. We heard from Laszlo Bach, who's the Senior Vice President of People Operations for Google, really the head of HR. And one of the things that he's talked about in his new book, Work Rules, is that you do really need to trust people. In fact, you need to trust the people you manage even more than you're comfortable with. If you're not uncomfortable, then you haven't trusted them enough. So could you speak a little bit about, Jennie, what you think that teachers can do as they maybe make that leap to trust the students more? Perhaps sharing a little bit about what it was that helped you know that it was okay to trust them and give them more agency over their learning.
So I think that when you're going to trust somebody, you have to bring them on board, and you have to get them to trust you as well. And so when we're trying out new and scary things in the classroom, we can't hold all of that inside. We need to be honest with our kids and say, hey, we're about to go on a new and uncharted territory, on an adventure that, quite frankly, is a little bit scary for me. And so when we started doing these new things in my classroom, I shared that with my kids. I said, I'm not sure where we're going to get, but here's my hope. And here's my dream, and here's why I think it matters. And I asked them what they wanted to do and what their goals were, and I asked them to trust me as well. And I gave them roles throughout our experience and our journey, like for Do Whatever You Want Day or 20% time, to help manage and audit our progress and empowered them to keep me in check as well. And because of that, and because we were all on the same page, and I'd entrusted them and they're entrusting me, it made it feel a lot safer for all of us to get into the sticky space and to take that leap.
Thanks. Now let's stay on that similar topic, but talk about the role that parents can play and how educators can work with parents in this area. So let's go to Jennie, and then I'll pose the same question to Brittany. So to you, Jennie, what can you say to the parents out there, and particularly what can you say to teachers collaborating with parents that might help the parents as well to support their future digital leaders?
I would say, first off, cultivate their curiosity. When they're very young, that's when they're asking all the questions. I have so many friends, my friend Mark Wagner was saying how,
Can't tell.
So they were saying how he would have his sons ask him all these questions at the breakfast table, and so many kids are constantly saying why and why, and I wonder and how, and I'm getting some feedback. I'm going to take these earbuds out, and why and I wonder and how. I've heard of parents who have entire walls of Post-it notes. So every day at breakfast and dinner, when they're asking you, Daddy, why? Mommy, why? Papa, how? They write all those questions on Post-it notes and cover an entire wall with Post-its of all of the questions, and they encourage that curiosity, and they share it with the teacher. They have a constant communication and dialogue going on about what their child is wondering about, what they're passionate about, and helping bridge that gap of who the kid is at home and who they are at school, so it feels like a more consistent basis. And the kids will shine as leaders if you let them be who they are.
Now, the same question over to Brittany. Brittany, what's your advice to parents and to families to help them encourage students?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Jennie said. I think it's great advice, particularly just allowing your student or your child to really follow whatever they're passionate about and not setting limits. I don't think my parents really believed that I was going to create a neural network that was diagnosing breast cancer when I started this project. I mean, I was 15, but they never told me that, and they were really supportive of the long hours and such I was pulling. So I think just making sure your student feels supported to follow their passions and has the resources available, be that parental support, teacher support. Just being your student's advocate for their passion is really important.
And I think that's a great point. I'm sure they didn't know you were going to build a neural network, but yet, they were able to support you and nurture you, and, you and everyone else, can continue to surprise and really delight everyone with what you're able to do. I want to now go and actually thank you to John who posed that question. I want to go to a question that we have coming in from Maureen. It's about teamwork and collaboration. So again, I want to start with Jennie and then go to Brittany. There's been a lot of people watching at home, like Maureen, who have heard time and again today that teamwork and collaboration are critical skills for students to be learning. Jennie, what is your advice to teachers about how they can empower their students to learn really good teamwork?
So the way that the best tip I would have is to give them authentic opportunities to team up and collaborate. So often in school we have authentic lights, which is we say this is a real world problem, and the real world problem is Tia and Jennie went to the store and bought 3 bags of chips for $2.99. How much did they make total? That's not an authentic problem. I mean, Tia, I would love to go to the store and buy chips with you, but let's be real. So if we can give them real hurt your head problems that are about what they're wondering about, and give them situations that they need to work together and collaborate to solve it, and they can't solve it by themselves, then they're going to work together. Then support and scaffold them so that they can develop and augment the skills that they have naturally to become better at teamwork and collaboration. That's going to be better than any icebreaker or any canned activity that you find in a book. Keep it real.
That's great, thanks. And I do want to go and buy chips with you at the store next time I'm in Chicago. And that is great advice. So for Brittany, can you think back in school to the times where maybe you really had a great experience working with a team? What sort of projects or experiences were they that the teachers allowed you to have?
Oh, okay. So I used to participate in this class, and our whole class was centered around futuristic thinking. And I think that this class actually gets a lot of credit for why I originally got interested in computer science. But we would get these fuzzy scene type things that our teacher would type up, and they were all based in the future. And it was about a page, and we would read them. We would be put into groups of 6, I believe, and we would get to go through and identify what problems this futuristic scene might be facing. And then we would come up with solutions. And we didn't have any sort of limitations of what technology or what was actually capable of happening in society, because it was based in the year 3000. And it was really exciting because there were multiple components of it. So for one part, we were writing, and I think I was the writing expert. But for another part, we actually had to act out our solution. And we had people who were experts at creating our props, or people who were better at identifying problems, and people who were better at making solutions. And so the teams were actually stacked to a point where you had to rely on each other, because only one person had the expertise to do the best job, and you had to trust that person for that step of the project. So I think that that was a really exciting way to have some real teamwork. And that was a whole year-long course devoted to exercises such as that. And it was an elective I chose to take in middle school, and it was really something that has impacted me, and obviously I'm still talking about it today. But I think along the way, there were a lot of teamwork projects, even in elementary school, up through high school, even now. I mean, science is one big teamwork endeavor. We need everybody to make the breakthroughs. But I'm really glad I had that foundation for how to work in a team.
Absolutely. It sounds like an amazing class. And to be able to work in those scenarios and really be able to collaborate with a team to solve problems for the future that don't even exist yet. I want to go to Jennie now. One question that we got from a viewer named Ima is not as much about future experiences, but real world experiences today. And we heard this echoed this morning by a student, Carlos, on the video, who said, why aren't they preparing me for the real world? I need some real world experiences. Jennie, can you give some examples of perhaps educators you've seen or projects that really have allowed students to really experience the real world in the classroom?
So it's like what Brittany was saying. If you can start with the kid's passion, then you can have a lot of ideas. And I think that it's happening everywhere. Right now, I'm actually at East Leiden High School. So I'm up the street from our schools, visiting Jason Markey, who's the principal here, and seeing the amazing work that he's doing with his high school students in this building. You're going to hear from them later. And they are constantly leading the way. They're the people who are fixing the Chromebooks in this building. They're cooking entire meals for conferences that principals and district and actually national leaders in education are going to. They're the ones whose voice is being lent to amazing discussions and debates about education and other important topics. And it's not just happening at the high school level, it's happening all over the world. As young as pre-K, we have kindergartners who are learning how to code because they want to figure out how they can get more help in their classroom. So they're trying to build the programs to help them. And so they're learning coding syntax at 5 years old before they learn how to spell. We have fourth graders who are changing the narrative about their own communities from one that is about despair and poverty and violence to one of family and community and love and happiness. It's about kids who are taking the challenges that they go to sleep thinking about and bringing them into the classroom and solving them with their teacher support.